Falling on hard times, Charles Rodrigo decides to take extra night shifts at the warehouse. Like most nights, the warehouse was starkly quiet and empty. With a few late-night delivery truck visits, Charles knew this shift would be the least troublesome. After clocking in, Charles made his rounds on the floor, checking to ensure all the boxes and packages were on their shelves. Things were in the right place, with the new shipments cordoned off and awaiting inspection. As Charles turns a corner, he notices some dark red substance on the floor near the new shipments. He walks over, curious as to its origin. He notices a foul odor as he approaches the new shipment area. "What is that awful smell?" he questions, thinking it almost smelled of a dead carcass. Covering his nose, Charles walked closer to the boxes and could see that one of the boxes appeared to be spewing out red liquid. With disgust, Charles backs away from the box. He leaves the area searching for a broom, returns to the same location, and attempts to tap on the box. There is no movement, just the sound of the broom bouncing off it. A confused Charles walks off and heads toward an office. He quickly picks up the phone and dials his manager, Carlos. "Hey Carlos, I have a box in the new shipment corner that smells bad and looks like blood might be coming out of it." Carlos tells Charles to add some caution tape near the area and that he'll inspect it first thing in the morning. He hangs up and starts to search the office for some caution tape. He finds it and starts to head back to the new shipment area. But as soon as he turned the corner, the box was gone. "What the hell?" he thought. He searches around the area for the box, but is unable to locate it. Suddenly, a deafening crash echoes through the warehouse. Reluctant to look for the noise source, he hesitates and turns around to start his investigation. "Hello?" he calls out, but his voice is met with eerie silence. He cautiously begins to walk down the aisle closest to him. "Whoever is there, you better show yourself." Charles inches forward, and then he hears another bone-chilling crash. Startled by the sound, he rushes back to the office and locks the door. He peeks through the office blinds to see if anyone is out there and sees no one. Trying to steady his racing heart, Charles shakes his head and brushes his shirt off. Suddenly, Charles could hear a tapping sound against the office window. A terrified Charles backs away from the window, and then his curiosity gets the better of him. He walks towards the window and peers through the blinds again. But as soon as his fingers pulled down on the plastic blinds, a pair of ominous dark red eyes stared back at him. He jolts back in horror when suddenly the office phone rings. A fearful and bewildered Charles quickly picks up the receiver. "Hello?" he stammers. However, only static noise could be heard on the other end of the receiver. He hangs up and curses at the phone. Suddenly, the doorknob to the office twists and turns as if someone is attempting to enter. Charles shouts, "I have a gun in here. I won't hesitate to shoot." He quickly picks up the phone and begins to dial for help. A few rings in, and the phone goes dead. "Hello?" He yells into the receiver, but gets no response. Flustered and afraid, he looks around the office for a weapon and finds a hammer in one of the drawers. Charles positions himself in a fighting stance with both hands locked and ready to swing the hammer. He can hear the pounding in his chest as the fear and anticipation takes over. Then, without warning, the office lights shut off, leaving Charles in complete darkness. Unable to move and think fast, Charles attempts to feel his way around the office, hoping to find a flashlight. But suddenly, he is overcome with a deep chill. It feels as if he has walked into a freezer. In complete shock, he begins to quicken his pace. He crashes to the floor after stumbling over an object. Then, the office door quickly swings open, and Carlos turns on the office light and is shocked to see Charles sprawling on the floor. "Hey man," says Carlos, "you doing okay there?" A flustered Charles slowly gets up with Carlos's help and tells him about his awkward encounter. The two decide to walk around the warehouse together to investigate. All is in order, and no sudden crashes or questionable boxes can be found. Carlos then tells Charles to go ahead and call it a night and that he'll finish this shift. A bit reluctant, he agrees and starts to collect his belongings. But curiosity struck him as he wondered why Carlos had arrived at the warehouse at this hour. A curious Charles hangs back to spy on him. He notices Carlos is heavily on his phone, as if texting someone repeatedly. He begins to follow him around the warehouse. Carlos rushes back and forth between aisles in search of something, unaware that Charles is watching him. Then a call comes, and a flustered Carlos quickly answers. "Hello?" Charles can't make out the rest of the conversation, so he tries to move closer. "I'm telling you, it's not here. I'll check outside near the loading area," says Carlos. He begins to trek towards the exit when he stops in his tracks. Charles quickly hides behind a large box. Then, the sounds of metal clinging together could be heard from afar. "Charles," asks Carlos, "is that you?" A nervous Charles bites his lower lips and doesn't respond. He too heard the same sound, but he knew it was not coming from him. Then, a massive creature emerges from the shadows near Carlos. Charles is frozen in fear and doesn't know what to do. He musters enough courage and screams to Carlos to look behind him. A terrified Carlos slowly turns around and faces a hideous monster. He screams in horror at the sight and attempts to run, but the beast has already taken a massive swipe at Carlos. Charles gasps, and the beast quickly sets its eyes on him. He begins to run away as quickly as possible, only to hear the beast breathing heavily not too far behind him. Then he hears a loud cackle. The beast seems to find the chase amusing, and poor Charles runs out of steam. As he pauses to catch his breath, two huge boxes fly off the shelf, knocking him to the ground. Charles falls unconscious. While he lies there motionless on the other side of the warehouse, a dying Carlos tries to reach for his phone. Almost torn apart at the waist down, he pushes and drags himself as close to his phone. Carlos reaches it and dials his boss, Mauricio. Screaming into the phone, he yells, "Diablo!" But before he can say anything else, the beast returns to Carlos. Leaning down towards him, the beast begins to drool. "Hello?" questions Mauricio over the phone, but he gets no response. Mauricio tries to make out the sounds he's hearing, resembling crunching and splashing. A fearful Mauricio hangs up and dials another coworker. "Hello? Benny, I need you to get to the warehouse on 5th Street. Check in on a package and see what's going on with Carlos. I suggest bringing backup." As soon as he hangs up, he receives another call. "Hello?" A female voice comes on the other line.
"Hello, Mauricio. This is Maria. I see you've received my package."
A shocked and confused Mauricio questions the statement. "So you're the one threatening us? What is in the package?" He furiously questions her.
"You'll see in due time. But for now, I want you and your men to remember the pain you caused me."
She replies. "What are you talking about?" he asked.
"You and your men took my boy. You killed him. You broke my boy into pieces and dumped him like trash. And now, I will return that favor."
Maria begins to mumble something incoherently into the phone. Charles is finally coming to and trying to get back on his feet. The warehouse is eerily silent. Strolling down the aisle, he listens for any sounds that would alert him to the beast, but he hears nothing. As he continues to find his way out of the warehouse cautiously, he stops when he hears footsteps. The sounds of heels clacking against the cement floors were something very unexpected. Slowly turning the corner, he can see an older woman walking towards the area where Carlos lies. The woman bends down and swipes her hand over the blood-soaked area. She then lifts both arms in the air and screams. The beast emerges behind her. Worried for the woman's safety, Charles runs out of hiding and screams for her to run, but the woman doesn't move. She stares blankly at Charles and finally asks,
And who are you?
Shocked by her question, Charles points at the beast standing behind her.
The beast will not harm me. So I ask again, who are you?
Stuttering from fear, he responds, I'm Charles, and I just want to get home to my family. The woman then turns to the beast, who hands her a box and says,
You say that you have family. And would you do anything for them?
A fearful Charles responds, Yes, I would. She moves in closer to him.
My son was my family, and the men that you work for, they took him away from me. You see, Charles, this place is terrible, and everyone who works here is guilty by association.
He begins to back away and anxiously responds, Please, I beg you, I haven't done anything. She begins to tear up and yells at him.
Well, my son never did anything, yet he was murdered.
Suddenly, the back door swings open, and it's Benny and his backup. The woman screams, and the beast switches sight to Benny and his men.
Kill them all.
She yells. The woman then takes out her phone and dials Mauricio. Hello? He nervously says, but she doesn't respond and puts the phone on speaker mode. Mauricio can hear the sounds of gunfire and a loud, monstrous howl while his men scream in horror on the other end of the line. What have you unleashed? He questions. She hangs up and quietly finds her way towards the exit.
Please like and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to click on the bell icon to get new video updates.